Yeah. Hello, teacher and everybody. I'm Yui and I'm from Group 10. Today, the topic we will talk about is airline insurance competitive of Flight 1 for Asiana Airlines. The topic includes three parts about Asiana Airlines. Asiana Airlines Flight 1 for crash and the last aviation insurance of airline Flight 1 for crash. About Asiana Airlines. Asiana Airlines is South Korea airline headquartered in Seoul. Founded in 1988, Asiana Airlines is a young airline in terms of management and fleet. Asiana Airlines route map is spread across 11 South Korean cities. In addition, the airline operated 90 international routes to 75 cities in 23 countries. By 2013, Asiana Airlines has brought its brand identity system around the world and July became a global airline. As a member of Star Alliance, it operates 90 international passenger routes, 14 domestic, and 27 cargo routes throughout Asia, Europe, North America, and Oceania. As of December 2014, the company employed 10,183 people. The majority of Asiana pilots, ground staff, and flight attendants are based in Seoul. Asiana Airlines is the largest shareholder in Busan, a low-cost regional carrier joint venture with Busan Metropolitan City. The airline also holds 100% share of Air Seoul, a subsidiary, and is a low-cost carrier. In 2019, it accounted for 25% of the current international aviation market and 20% of its domestic markets. It maintains its international hub at Incheon International Airport and its domestic hub at Gimpo International Airport, also in Seoul, and Gimhae International Airport in Busan. About Asiana Airlines Flight 214. Asiana Airlines Flight 214 was a scheduled trans-Pacific passenger flight originating from Incheon International Airport near Seoul, South Korea. On the morning of July 6, 2013, the Boeing 777-200ER crashed on final approach into San Francisco International Airport in the United States. Of the 300 people on board, there are 291 passengers and 16 crews. There were 141 were Chinese, 77 were Korean, 61 were American, and 12 were from other countries. And 3 died. Another 187 were injured, 49 of them seriously. Among the seriously injured were 4 flight attendants who were thrown onto the runway while strapped in their seats when the tail section broke up after striking the seaworn surface of the runway. It was the first fatal crash of Boeing 777 since the aircraft type entered service in 1995. The investigation by the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board (NTSB) concluded that the accident was caused by the flight crew mismanagement of the airplane final approach. Deficient in documentation of complex flight control system and Asian airline pilot training were also cited as contributory factor. The next to have will description of the plane crash.
Cô ơi, mạng nhà em nó bị hơi kém á, cho nên nếu mà em thuyết trình mà nó bị giật thì cô nói em nha cô.
Cô nghe em rõ mà em nói đi.
Dạ vâng. Hi teacher, hi everyone. Now I present the part 2.2. On July 6, 2013, the Federal Aviation Administration confirmed that a plane thought to be operated by Asiana Airlines and reported Air Asiana 214 came down at San Francisco International Airport in the United States, specifically the July 6, 2013 at 11:26 a.m. The Asiana Flight 214 crashed while attempting to land on runway 28L 30 at San Francisco International Airport. The wide-body Boeing 777 airplane chucked a seaward main fuselage, includes the passenger cabin, hubble, and spin down the runway to a discharge slide until it came to rest about 2,400 feet away. Pieces broken of the tail were strewn about the runway. Soon after, two evacuation slides were deployed on the left side of the airline and used for passengers leaving the plane. After a minute or so, a dark plume of smoke was observed rising from the wing race. After the fire, the top of the fuselage was burned away and the entire tail was gone. The fire was traced to a ruptured oil tank above the right engine. The leaking oil fell onto the hot engine and engine. Fire engine rescue workers and couple of medical staff were mobilized to put out the fire and evacuation victims. Now, Cao Hương will repeat next part.
Hi, teacher and my friends. Welcome to my part. The cause of the plane crash. U.S. investigators have concluded that the pilots were the main cause of the catastrophic landing of an Asiana Airlines plane in San Francisco that killed 3 people on July 2030. No errors were found in the automated system, flight control system, or warning system. The pilots made 20 or 30 errors in the last 22 kilometers of flight, the NTSB said in statement. These pilots' poor control appear to have been the cause of the crash of Flight 214. The NTSB agreed that the flight crew of the Boeing 777 did not appropriately understand the airline's cockpit automation system and did not appropriately respond when the plane started flying too slow and too loud to land safely during final approach. NTSB acting chairman Christopher Hart said at a public hearing in Washington, D.C. The automation system works as designed, but the pilots don't understand what it's not going to do and what's not going to do. It's not a design issue, it's a matter of design and pilot's knowledge. Asiana Airlines training may not have fully prepared the co-pilots who is responsible for overseeing Captain Lee Can-cook, as it's the first time he has landed a Boeing 777. In addition, career fatigue is also a factor in accident. In document made public by the safety board, Asiana acknowledged the likely cause of the accident was the crew failure to monitor and maintain the plane's airspeed, and its failure to abort the landing when in trouble. The South Korea-based airline said the pilots and co-pilots responsible believed the automatic throttle would keep the plane flying fast enough to land safely, when in fact the auto throttle was effectively shut off. Aside from over-reliance, federal investigators also found that pilots' mismanagement, lack of training, and confusion regarding technology and the complexity of the Boeing 777 auto throttle contribute to a cascade of errors that day. And the NTSB also sent petition to the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, Asiana Airlines, and Boeing. Boeing and Asiana Airlines need to re-examine flight training, and the FAA consider issuing special certification on how the Boeing 777 controls its own speed. Boeing told the board there was nothing wrong with the plane, and the crash was caused by the failure of the pilots. Asiana Airlines later issued a statement admitting the error again and taking responsibility for the incident. The airline said it has followed the NTSB recommendation and pledged to strive to be the safest airline. And thank you to listening to me. Welcome to next part, presented by Thủy Dương.
Cô không nghe Thùy Dương nói.
Dạ em xin lỗi, em quên bật mic ạ. I will a presentation on the consumer of a machine accident consists of two parts. The first, human estimate. The July 6, 2013 rest when Asiana Flight 124 from South Korea collided with a C1 at the beginning of the runway, leading to a sabotage and a flight one landing at San Francisco Airport. Of the 307 people on board, there are 291 passengers, 16 crew. There are 141 were Chinese, 77 were Korean, and 61 were American, and 12 were from other countries. 139 passengers were minor injured, 49 were severe injured, and 3 passengers were killed. A 16-year-old Chinese were one of a three were killed. She survived the rest, but were fatally injured by a fractured ACL on the runway and subsequently died. It was the first fatally rest of a Boeing 777 since the average type entered service in 1995. In an ABC News report, San Francisco General Hospital Chief of Surgery Dr. Margaret Newson revealed that many patients suffer severe abdominal leading that might have been caused by the lens spell, at least two individuals with spinal fracture were paralyzed and others suffer trauma. Some passengers sustained crackles, or fractured sternum from the rest. Other experienced minor pain, and many had home breathing difficulty as a result of the smoke and fuel, or possibly from arresting. The second, airport damage. The accident caused heavy damage to San Francisco Airport. San Francisco Airport was closed for hours after the crash. Runway 28 were out of commission since the rest causing contain delay and cancellation for travelers. The rest called San Francisco Airport Air Traffic Controller to the 527 flight to Oakland, Central Minnesota, and Los Angeles. Other flight has landed at San Francisco Airport. Retro passengers couldn't get off the plane, called custom version ready to process it. Therefore, passengers had to stay on the plane for many hours. At 3 p.m. Pacific Standard, July 6, 2013, more than 230 flights has been cancelled. The rest also damaged Asian reputation and death of the Korean airline industry after years of apparent improvement following a series of plane disasters in the 1980 and early 1990. Asian self-fuel 5.8 version on the first day of trading after the crash. South Korea Financial Services Commission said July 7 in a statement. The consumer estimate crash cost may be about 148 billion won for the plane and 50 billion won for payout to passengers and damage to the runway. Now, we will talk about part 2.
Hi everyone, I'm Uyên. Now I will present part 3, aviation insurance of Airline Flight 214 crash. Firstly, Part 3.1, the main responsible insurance company. The South Korean Financial Services regulator says that 10 South Korean insurers sell about 4% of the coverage, and that the rest were underwritten in the international market. Report says Willis Group Holding either List Broker and American International Group, abbreviation AIG, was the lead insurer providing coverage on Asiana Airlines Flight 214, which crashes on July 6, 2013 at San Francisco International Airport. The second one is Part 3.2, Aviation Insurance Product and Compensation Rate. Sources in London says Willis Group Holding played the airline hull and liability insurance coverage. On July 7, 2013, the South Korean Financial Services regulator says in a statement that the aircraft carried liability insurance of up to about 2.2 billion USD, liability coverage for its crew about 3 million USD, and hull coverage about 130 million USD. AIG has the largest portion of the risk, about 100 million USD. On August 12, 2013, in a brief statement, Asiana spokesperson Lee Hyo-min told the family of the victim of Flight 214 were past more than 10,000 USD, and that depending on the finding of an investigation by the NTSB, the airline could pay more to survivors. This initial payment is intended to cover the passenger's immediate urgent need and spread from medical compensation. The curve has two feature compensation for people aboard on Asiana Airlines Flight 214. The potential payout will probably be vastly different for American and passengers from other countries, even if they were seated side by side as the jet line has landed. Now invite teacher and everyone watch a short video about compensation of Asiana Airlines Flight 214.
San Francisco International Airport 2 years ago, and on Tuesday, the airline agreed to settle 72 personal injury claims made by passengers on the flight. The amount passengers are to be compensated is confidential. That word comes just as new images emerge, revealing the passengers and their frantic efforts to get out of that jet alive. You could see the chutes deploy, and immediately the passengers racing down them. Of the 307 passengers and crew members on board the plane, 139 received minor injuries, 49 were seriously injured, and 3 died. Both Asiana and Boeing, the maker of the 777 that crashed, were involved in Tuesday's settlement. According to the Los Angeles Times, Air Cruisers Company, who made the emergency evacuation slides used by passengers, was also included. While we can't be certain how much each passenger will be compensated, multiple law firms have said this case falls under the Montreal Convention since it was an international flight. That means Asiana would owe each passenger up to around $170,000 in compensation. But a seriously injured American on board the flight could earn much more, according to an attorney who spoke to the San Jose Mercury News in 2013. Thanks to the Montreal Convention, which China, South Korea, and the U.S. have all signed, anyone injured on Asiana's plane can receive the $170,000 in compensation, but due to the differences in Chinese and South Korean courts, citizens of those countries may have a harder time getting anything more than that. Court records reviewed by the LA Times showed there are at least 60 lawsuits against Asiana filed in California alone. In January of last year, more than 80 passengers filed a suit against Boeing in an
Yes, the amount a passenger are to be compensated is confidential. Therefore, can be certain how much each passenger will be compensated. Multiple law firms have said this case fall under the Montreal Convention, since it was an international flight. Thanks to the Montreal Convention, which China, South Korea, and the US have on site, anyone injured on Asiana plane can receive the 170,000 USD in the compensation. However, the Montreal Convention restricts the ability of foreign passengers to sue Asiana in dual cost. Passengers eligible to sue under the Montreal Convention stand to get far less. Therefore, while American passengers could see multi-million-dollar verdicts or settlements, passengers of Chinese and South Korean countries may have a harder time to getting similar compensation. In all, the South Korean government agency that regulates the country's insurance industry expects Asiana Insurance to pay out about 175.5 million USD total, of which 131 million USD to relay the blend and other 44.5 million USD to passengers and the city of San Francisco for damage the airport. This is the end of the presentation of Group 10. Thank everyone for listening. I hope everyone have a nice day. Thank you.